What is up, guys? Welcome. Crypto FUD. And let's jump right into this, guys. Oh man, having a crazy morning here. Obviously, you guys already probably are seeing that the markets are taking a little bit of a dump today. We have come down for Bitcoin somewhere around 117,600. We're going to cover exactly what happened. I'm sure you already understand what happened, but we'll go into it a little bit more in detail. Why I think this is potentially a good thing, in my opinion. Is there going to be more to come? Well, we're going to cover all this here in a second. So make sure you guys hit that like, hit that subscribe. Let me get some water. I'm literally fresh from the gym. Was driving like a maniac to get home. I'll tell you this, before we even start off, I was not expecting today to be like this. Honestly, I was not expecting this PPI report to come out and cause such a, not that we've seen a massive crash, but even seeing the 5%, move from just last night to where we were at this morning. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy what some of these numbers can actually do to the market. So let's just jump right into this. So if you guys are just joining, welcome. So what happened this morning? What happened literally just an hour ago? Well, we'll cover it right now. You can see the Bitcoin volatility strikes as hot PPI data spurs dollar rally. Craig, what's going on, brother? So Bitcoin experienced a sharp volatility, dropping to 117.7 before recovering about to 118, following a surprising hot U.S. inflation report. So the U.S. Producer Price Index is a key inflation indicator measuring the wholesale good prices. It surged to 0.9% for the month, significantly exceeding the forecast 0.2 increase. This marked a sharp acceleration from the prior month's stagnant 0% reading. And real quick, I do want to pull that up. Let's see here. Usually they give us, let me see here, PPI. You see how I'm typing in capitalization? Like, I need the answers now. Owen said, glad I took profits, now I can reposition. Hey, there we go, bro. There we go. So PPI stands for Producer Price Index. It's an economic indicator that measures the average change over time in the selling prices received by domestic producers for their output. Essentially, it tracks inflation from the perspective of sellers rather than the consumers. Marlon, what's going on, brother? So if you can, you understand what that says. It's basically, instead of seeing what consumers are paying, right? That's usually the CPI report. This is the PPI report, which basically you can see what the actual retailers are paying, right? So we go back over to the article, and it basically is stating that we were forecast to see a small increase of about 0.2% of what retailers are paying last month in regards to for goods. And I'm sure it's just probably a broad spectrum of everything, right, that's coming in. But you can see we actually came in at 0.9, which is technically over 4 times more than what we were forecast to potentially get. So that's why the markets, basically, we saw such a massive increase, right? I guess you could say massive increase. I'm not really too familiar with the PPI report in regards, but I mean, a 0.9% increase seems like it's not too, like crazy in my opinion, but who knows, right? The point is that it came in literally over 4 times higher than what it was forecast to be, and that's why you're seeing or saw a brief sell-off. Right now, we'll go back to Bitcoin and we'll finish our article, but you can see, let's zoom in a little bit on the 5-minute. You can kind of get a little gist of what we got here. So we did drop down to our lowest point was around 117.6. You can see it's trying to try to get a rebound as of right now. We're on the 5-minute. So you can see maybe potentially some kind of a W pattern that's forming on the 5-minute that might indicate that we might see somewhat of a rebound. I'm not expecting Bitcoin to just, within an hour jump back up to 124. But at the same time, I've said this before, if we actually zoom out and you look where Bitcoin's at, we're literally right where we were at last week, right? After this 5% drop, we're literally at the higher points of where we were at last week. So all in all, I don't think this is really, I mean, obviously it scared the markets, but I'm not really anticipating that this is like a, oh my God, this is it, the rally's over or anything like that. Even looking at the stock market right now, the S&P is still hovering right below all-time highs, over 6,400, down 0.1%. NASDAQ is down 0.02%, and Dow Jones is down about 0.3%. The big winners today are going to be, if people are scared, what are going to be the big winners usually? It's going to be the VIX because of volatility, right? The dollar is up 0.3% right now, and I'm surprised that gold isn't actually doing pretty well, but it's down technically 0.3%. U.S. oil actually is up about 1% as of now. So, I mean, like I said, all in all, Troy, what's going on? Ethereum's heading back up. Uh-oh. Troy with the update. Appreciate that, bro. Look at that. You're not going to be able to stop this momentum right now, guys. I'm telling you, it's not going to... What I remember at the beginning of the stream, what I was about to say here, I said, yes, it sucks what we just saw, but why is this going to be potentially a good thing in my opinion? Because that was a good dip right there that you could have easily opened up a long, or you could have easily stacked up on some of the projects that potentially, like some of the meme coins that I'm invested in, were down 20% earlier. They're already starting to rebound. What do you think I was doing? I was literally driving. Don't tell anybody. You should never drive and trade, all right? But I was driving earlier. It was like 9 o'clock and the drop happened. And I pull up one of my portfolios. I was like, holy shit. I was like, what's going on? I go and pull up the actual deck screener on some of the meme coins. And I look and I'm like, oh my, down 20%. I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so scared. Hurry up, I'm trying to buy. As I'm driving, beep, get out of the way. And I'm sitting here adding to my bags on all this stuff. Because we know where we're headed here, guys. We know where we're headed here. So days like today, yeah, it stinks, you know, especially off of a big rally that we had yesterday. We knew there was going to be somewhat of a cool off, but you know, it does scare, you know, the people that are, you know, not seasoned, I would say, as some of us are. When you see dips like that, they're immediately, oh my, it's over. Oh my God, it's over. It's all over here. But when we really look at things, if I can pull it up, if you really look at things right now for the month, even after this dip, we're still up for the month of August, which we're 2 weeks in. We're still up 4%, guys. We're still up 4%. So honestly, like I said, I don't think this is going to be something where we're going to be like, it's going to be dragged on. But today, you know, could be a bumpy ride. It could be a bumpy ride. It could be where it looks like we're recovering, and then maybe we see a little bit more of some downward movement, right? It's going to be probably one of those days. Hopefully, we see a nice V-shaped recovery, though, right? That would be probably the best scenarios where we see a nice little V-shaped recovery, and we just get back up, you know, towards at least around, you know, 122, 123, and then Ethereum obviously getting back up towards that 4,700 mark. So, but just to finish off this article right here, so economic views, economists, there we go. I swear I can read. Economists view a higher than expected PPI as bullish for the US dollar, which isn't good for the market, right? US dollar goes up, market usually tends to be inverse, and it's not going to do the best, signaling a potential rise inflationary pressures upstream. The significant jump fueled immediate dollar strength. Analysts attributed the price pressure party to an impact of tariffs implemented by the Trump administration. You know, they've been just dying. These people have been dying for some kind of a report like this to come out so they can just be like, see, I told you, the tariffs. Because if you guys remember, just like 4 or 5 months ago when all this shit was starting, they said it was going to crash the economy. The world economy was done, right? And nothing happened. And they're all sitting around like, what's going on here? They're like, what? And something like this happens. They're like, see, told you it was going to happen. Everybody's driving right now. That's awesome. I'm inside your car. That's awesome. Just drive safe. Don't do what I was doing and trading and driving. Don't do that, all right? We're going to have lulls in like 10 years from now. Crypto's going to be so big, they're going to be like, you're not allowed to trade and drive. You're going to get pulled over. Like, we saw your phone up. Were you trading? No. Pull your portfolio up. When's your last transaction? So, and that was 30 seconds ago. Get out of the car. Put your hands up. I got a trader right now on Highway 65 right here. Yeah. Craig says, what's your thoughts on people playing this bull run? Will it go to 2026? Well, Craig, you already know. I mean, you should know because you're here every day. I honestly, I gave out on the member stream, we had 3 scenarios that were, one of those 3 scenarios are going to play out. I'm not going to really go into depth with that. But what I will say is one of the scenarios was that we potentially could run till the first quarter of 2026, potentially, right? We're basically still thinking this 4-year cycle is going to be still in play. And with that being said, let me see here. With that being said, I have so many tabs open. With that being said, right? So you go back to 2021, and actually we topped in the market in November, towards the third week of November of 2021. We actually closed at down 7% that month, and the reason is because we had ran so much in 3 weeks that by the end of November, we already had topped out and we were on our way down. I say this because I personally think that we're most likely going to be topping out towards the end of this year. Maybe we have an extended run and we roll over to 2026, January, February, somewhere around those months, potentially, maybe. I personally think towards the end of this year, I think if we have a later 4-year cycle top, it's probably going to be somewhere in December. That's my opinion, because usually January rolls around and a lot of people usually sell off just because of tax reasons and stuff like that. So I find it hard to believe that we're going to really see a 2026 where we're still 3 years in a bull market. Really, technically 4 years. We've been rallying. We've bounced up. We started the bottom of the bear market, and really us moving up to where we're at right now started in 2022. I mean, it's already, we're due. We're due for a bear market coming up soon, in my opinion. But we won't talk about that because we brought that up yesterday and half the viewers left. Look at this. It's already happening. So we won't talk about that. For right now, like I said, August usually ends off when we're on a 4-year cycle. August usually ends in a solid month in the green. September is the month that we're kind of waiting to see. The end of August, the beginning of September is usually where we're going to see some kind of a last dip before the final rip. So we'll see how this plays out. But just to finish off with this article, while Bitcoin swiftly rebounded above 119, it dropped back below that range, and the day prior it reached an all-time high of 124,500. The inflation data places increased focus on upcoming September Federal Open Market Committee, the FOMC meeting. Markets participants now see a higher probability of the Fed could maintain the rate or even signal readiness to raise the federal. Oh my God! Did you hear that? So right now, let's refresh this data here. But you can see we're still. Oh, this has dropped in the last hour. This has dropped. So we were, if you guys remember yesterday, we were at 99.9% that the market was anticipating some kind of a reduction in interest rates. Look at this. It is essentially dropped down 7%. 7% of the market now is thinking that we're going to see some kind of a pause in rates. I personally don't think that Jerome Powell, for his safety, is going to pause rates. That's just my opinion. I think there's nothing that can come out right now that is going to change. He has to reduce rates. Has to. That's just my opinion, but we'll see how that all plays out. So looking at the crypto bubbles for the day, wow, what a change. Yesterday, nothing but a sea of green, right? Today, we have a lot of red. ADA's still up about 6%. What is this? HTX is up about 3%, and we have KEA up around 4%. But other than that, you can see across the board, everything's down right now. Alts particularly are down anywhere from 5 to 10% as of now. So we'll just have to see what today brings. Like I said, for right now, you can see, it looks like, we keep trying to get like a nice little run up, and then it gets rejected. Same thing with Ethereum, right? Nice little bounce, just ran up to 4640, and it looks like it's getting rejected as of now. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if at least the first half of today, that's kind of how things are. You know, we're kind of teeter-tottering, looking like the market wants to continue down. We might even continue down, but at some point, I think in the next day or two, we're going to just move right past this all. We're going to move right past this all. So I wouldn't be too focused on what we saw here for today. Let's see here. So Bitcoin ETFs to lock up. Let's get into some bullish stuff here. So Bitcoin ETF to lock up 1.5 million Bitcoin by New Year's as supply squeeze tightens grip. So Bitcoin spot exchange traded funds, ETFs, are now on pace to hold more than 1.5 million Bitcoin by the year end. If current inflow rates persist, according to the holding data tracked by Wallet Pilot, this would allocate more Bitcoin to ETFs than most estimates for lost coins, which stands around 1.4 million Bitcoin. U.S. spot ETFs collectively hold around 1.296 million Bitcoin as of August the 13th, equivalent to nearly 6.5% of the circulating supply. The past 30 days saw a net addition of approximately 17,000 Bitcoin across all funds, a run rate that is, if sustained, would push the total ETF holdings past 1.5 million by December. And what they're basically saying is, obviously, ETFs, right? When people are buying ETFs, they're not actually buying Bitcoin, but these ETFs have to hold Bitcoin, right? They can't just sell like a paper, like, this is a Bitcoin right here. It has to be 1-to-1, pretty much, right? So what they're saying is by the end of this year, the ETFs are most likely going to be holding at the very least 1.5 million Bitcoin in all the ETFs combined holding right there, which takes out over 6% of the supply for Bitcoin that is basically being held by just ETFs alone. So that's awesome. That's awesome. That right there is why I told you guys, whenever we finally do see a bear market, I don't expect Bitcoin to drop down, to 15,000 again or anything like that, just because there's so many institutions that are holding such mass quantities of Bitcoin now that most likely they are going to hold throughout a bear market, so I wouldn't be surprised if we hold at such a higher price whenever we finally do see some kind of a bear market, whenever it does occur. So BlackRock's iShare Bitcoin Trust accounts for the largest share, with roughly 744,000 Bitcoin under management. This position represents about 3.3% of total Bitcoin supply and has been built since the fund started in January 2024. At an average pace of roughly 4,300 Bitcoin added per month in recent months, IBIT, which is BlackRock's ETF alone, could add around 130,000 Bitcoin to its reserves by the end of the year if flows remain steady. So that right there just shows you guys that even with everything that's going on, there's still massive bullish stuff going on. Think about this, 1.5 million, or even think about this, 6.5% of the supply of Bitcoin is basically locked up, essentially. You don't even account for Michael Saylor. You don't account for all the countries that are holding Bitcoin, right, by the thousands. I would honestly say 50 to 60% of Bitcoin is just basically locked. That's just not on any exchanges. Nowhere. It has no, there's going to be no sales of those Bitcoins for any time soon. So this is nothing but good for Bitcoin and for the whole market, essentially. So anybody playing Battlefield? Anybody playing Battlefield 6? Today it does drop the beta. I know it's a little off topic, but it does drop today. Looking to see if there's any other news that we've had. Just in, this was 40 minutes ago, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says we are not going to be buying Bitcoin. What do you mean by that, buddy? An hour ago, Bassett said that Bitcoin reserves are worth in America are worth 15 to 20 billion dollars. Not too bad. Look at this.
Dollars a year for each point. Now he's got us in a bad place. So we're paying $360 billion a year for each point. Now, I believe we should be 3 or 4 points lower. So that's over $1 trillion we pay every year in interest. And it's really just a paper calculation. You sign a document and you save almost $1 trillion because that number equates very much to the bonds that we have to buy. But despite that, we're powering through it, and we have the greatest economy maybe we've ever had.
So did you guys hear that? Put your emotions aside and just listen to what he said. Regardless of who's in power right now, the U.S. right now, while interest rates are at where they're at, 4.25, 4.5, the U.S. because of the U.S. debt is paying. What is that, yearly? I think it was, right? Every year we're paying $1 trillion in just interest. That's why the guy wants interest rates to drop. That's honestly the reason why, because he's looking at it as a business aspect. We're paying $1 trillion every year in just interest. That's not even paying the damn debt off at all. Imagine, it's not sustainable on what we're going through right now as far as the country. And that's why I think he's saying essentially, we have to reduce interest rates, bro. We have to. And it needs to come rapidly. Why would you do this and continue to have us? I mean, yes, inflation isn't at 2%. It's at 2.7%. Reduce the damn rates, right? It's insane, honestly, when you really think about that you and I, because you pay taxes, right? I hope you do. I know I get taxed for everything that I freaking do in life, right? You get taxed on whatever you're working. Then you go and buy something, you get taxed, right? You know what I was thinking about the other day is how many times that $1 that you have, right? You have $1, you're looking at $1. How many times has that dollar been taxed? Hundreds of times, right? So every time they print out that dollar just in taxes is going to bring them probably thousands of dollars. Just that $1, if you think about that, right? And it's just insane. I mean, taxes aren't going to go away when interest rates drop, but it's always good to see taxes getting used for other things other than paying for just interest on the debt that we have as a country. So, yeah, craziness right now. So, all in all, like I said, guys, I wouldn't be too worried, in my opinion, on what's going on right now as far as with the PPI report. I think this is going to kind of just blow over. I mean, the news just dropped an hour and a half ago, right? So far, we're holding around that 117.6 right now. Seems to be hopefully where we're going to hold. I hope that later on, we start seeing somewhat of a V-shaped recovery. Ethereum's down to 40. Where do we at? About 4,600. Ethereum dropped down to 4,400 as of now. But like I said, looking at the stock market as well, everything's kind of stagnant. Crypto obviously is hit a lot harder. Bitcoin down 4%, Ethereum down 3%, but the stock market's down literally 0.1%. Nothing too crazy here. And the dollar really hasn't spiked. It's only up about 0.5% as of now. So nothing too crazy. A couple things I wanted to just discuss real quick. If you are invested in ZBEC, today, at some point, they are going to, every month they add that, they add 2% to the circulating supply. This is the last month that they're actually going to be doing it. But I called this out a week ago. I said we're probably going to see some sell-offs going on just because for whatever reason, these people, 2% added to the circulating supply, and they're all like, oh my God, I have to sell off. It's going to crash. So it looks like they've already done it this morning. They already went ahead and added to the circulating supply. So in my opinion, this is the reason why, on top of the market already kind of being down, this is why you're seeing ZBEC particularly slightly down. But if you really think about it and you really look at this chart, we've been holding some solid numbers. As of now. So we are on this kind of downward trend, which we've done before and we bounced. I wouldn't be surprised at some point we find some bottom if we haven't already, and we start trekking back up. Once we break above this 236, that's around the 57, which we've just recently were above briefly, but we never found support. If we can find some support above that 57 area, I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about some all-time highs setting up for ZBAC coming up down the road. So obviously the rest of the market's going to need to be back into like a bullish mode, which I anticipate will be probably by the end of the day or, at some point in the next few days. And also, we're going to have to see some nice volume coming into ZBAC as well. Another project that I've been advocating about, told you guys about this project when it was down here, and it actually went up in 5x. It is having a nice little cool off as of now, is Mask. Cat with Mask, that's on Solana. This project right here, like I said, daily does $3-4 million in volume. And I know you're like, that's not a lot. It is when the market cap's only at $9 million, right? The market cap is so low. This is a Solana-based project right here. I think this has so much potential to do very well in these next coming weeks, if not next coming months here. So right here, Cat with Mask, this is on Solana. Obviously, I am invested in the project. I did tell everybody that I sold off at the top right here, and I've been accumulating, just picking my my bag right back up on these nice dips. So, and I saw somebody who said that. I think who was it? Oh yeah, Owen. Owen said he did the same thing. I don't know about for this project, but he did the same thing. He sold, he said, in the last couple of days, and now he's basically reaccumulating everything. So that's pretty much the name of the game for right now, as far as, while we're seeing these dips. But at some point, there's going to be no more dips for a little while, and we're just going to be running. Let me pull up. I want to just pull up ADA real quick before we go. ADA yesterday, if you guys remember, we were talking about this. I think it wasn't it yesterday. ADA was at like 80 cents. Yeah, it was. ADA was at 80 cents. I said $1 inbound. $1 inbound. And it literally ran up at that dollar and got rejected exactly like we said yesterday. Literally said this exact thing yesterday. I said ADA is going to come up and it's probably going to get rejected somewhere around that dollar. And that's exactly what happened. It ran up, went to about 101. Yeah, about 101. And got rejected, but sitting at around 93 cents right now, even after the dip. So, looks good for ADA. Nice little 20-30% move as of yesterday and a little bit of a cool off, but I wouldn't be surprised when the markets pick back up. Something like ADA, Solana. Solana was at 200 yesterday. All these projects are going to pick back up and they're going to start running. So, before we go, again, I just want to keep stressing this out. This is Bitcoin's monthly gains, right? And I'm telling you guys, August usually tends to be a solid month during bull runs, right? You go back to 2021, August closed almost 14%. Right now we're up still, even after today, we're still up about 4% in August, right? September is the month that we're going to be looking for. I think September is going to be that month, maybe towards the end of August and at the beginning of September is where we're going to see somewhat of a move towards the downside, just a flush out where it's going to flush out a lot of these weak hands. A lot of people are going to think that was the top. That's it. They're selling. And then, like I said, September ends up being not the best month, but following October, November, and December tend to be really good months during bull runs, especially during the actual bull cycle, bull top. We usually see a top during this time towards the last quarter of the year. So I'm just giving you the heads up now, right? Things can change, things can be different, but normally we're going to see a September dip and then we'll see an October, November, December rip at some point. So just telling you now so you can be prepared. Don't be scared. Not financial advice, but me personally, just DCAing, adding, because I'm waiting for this. We're literally at the finish line here, guys. We're literally at the finish line. Don't fuck this up. All right. That's pretty much it, guys. Not a crazy long stream today. Hope I gave you guys some hopium. We're going to be fine. We're going to be good, right? If you've been around, we see days like this all the time. And what always happens? We always rebound. We always get back up and running. So take advantage of these dips. If some of your projects are down today, right? Obviously not financial advice, but At the end of the day, we'll be fine, all right? With that being said, that's it. Tonight, we will have our work art. If you're watching this, we're going to have our trenches tonight, all right? Scouts honor. We'll have our trenches. We're heading to the trenches tonight, all right, guys? If you're interested, hit that join button. Come join us. We're going to be going into the trenches tonight, trying to see if we can get some nice 1020Xs. Last stream, we were just playing around, and we ended up seeing a nice little 10X. Literally live while we were there, so... All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much. Have a great, productive Thursday. The week's almost over. We're good. All right, guys. I'll see you guys later.